Okay, so hello and welcome to everyone joining us for today's webinar. I'm so sorry about the delay. We had some small technical issues, but we are ready to go now. Today we will discuss the Cyprus quality of life and cost of living compared to the UK. So my name is Laura. I will be presenting this morning. I am originally from the UK, however, have lived in Limassol in Cyprus for over 3 years, and I will provide just a little insight for those wanting to know more about Cyprus life, or if you're thinking to make the move to live on the island from anywhere, really. You'll also notice the chat box on screen. So if something is unclear to you or you would like any more information on anything mentioned today, please don't hesitate to ask and I will respond after the webinar using the email that you used to sign up today. So we're going to look briefly at the advantages and disadvantages of both the UK and Cyprus. This is, of course, a general overview of the main points, with actually a little more focus towards Cyprus. It's obviously a popular destination for many looking to relocate, and it's where the Altoma Corporate Service head offices are located. Generally, we get a lot more inquiries for business and immigration-related services for Cyprus as a jurisdiction. So we will also compare the cost of living as an average standard of living in both countries and how this is measured. So the quality of life survey and what constitutes quality family life in any country. So we'll also look at why there is such an attraction to Cyprus and explain the trends and why a lot of UK citizens are relocating there. Not just UK, from everywhere within Europe and Russia as well. So how to make that a reality if you're looking to move from any country, and yeah, including as well Russia and China. So the points I'm about to discuss cover the main and general considerations that average young working professionals or families tend to be interested in. So these are, of course, subjective. So not everyone will value the same positive aspects or necessarily agree with the negative points of living anywhere. So please bear in mind to take everything mentioned somewhat inconclusively. And of course, if you'd like any more information on anything mentioned, please just drop a note in the comments and I will be happy to elaborate. So some of the advantages of UK life: it's a robust and somewhat stable economy. So living and working in the United Kingdom will provide security of tenure for many individuals because the economy is generally stable. So some of the financial institutions in the country date back over a century because the market has, always been relatively stable and is not expected to significantly change in the next several decades. The strong economy can also be credited to the effective governance, which provides utmost care and importance to all citizens. So an important thing to note is that while the EU continent has suffered somewhat of a recession in the last few years, the UK has remained relatively strong, and there remains enough opportunity for citizens and immigrants alike to build a life there. So this also ties into the financial opportunities there. So working in the UK can be extremely lucrative depending on the type of job or work that you do. The minimum salary as of 2017 was £1,235. So that's UK sterling per month. And there are also a lot of opportunities, increasingly so, to work flexi hours as well. So the advanced technology and commercialism. So many cities in the UK are known to be centres of technology and commerce and even fashion. Often the latest gadgets, clothes, cars, and other items will always be widely available. The UK is one of the most advanced countries in the world, which is why residents enjoy being part of the various cultural events, activities that celebrate new milestones and developments in different industries. So I've put here convenience society. So it is the UK is somewhat known as a convenience society. So after you get used to it, it does start to become embedded in how you live, and by comparison, does make Cyprus seem quite regimented and not as flexible. So, for instance, what I mean by this is if you want to go to eat breakfast at 1 a.m. in the morning, you will always find somewhere to be able to do that. If you feel the need to drop off your dry cleaning, for instance, on a Sunday afternoon, that's no problem at all. If you want to go shopping after you work late, it's always interesting to bear in mind that in Cyprus, most shops close by 6 p.m. Midweek and are often closed on Sundays. And of course, anywhere where there are big cities, there are a lot of events, so concerts, plenty of dining and entertainment options, art galleries, cultural evenings. Um, but obviously, different things appeal to different tastes everywhere. And we will look at the NHS. Of course, the healthcare and education is an important aspect of living anywhere. And the NHS really is a huge benefit that residents living in the UK can take advantage of. And this is actually something that not many EU countries can offer. So there are health institutions, educational institutions in the UK that offer free medical services and education. Residents receive a good standard of emergency or medical care, either being partially or, in most cases, entirely subsidized or free of charge. And this is thanks to the National Healthcare Service. It refers to government funded medical and healthcare services that anyone living in the UK can access without paying for the cost of the service at all, which includes visiting a doctor or a nurse at a doctor's surgery, getting help and treatment at hospital if you are unwell or injured. You can see a midwife if you're pregnant. You can also get urgent help from healthcare professionals working in the ambulance services if you have serious or life threatening injuries or health problems. So this might include being transported to hospital, for instance. And yeah, of course, there are also a number of world-renowned schools and universities where you can also further their education for free. So, of course, there are some disadvantages of living in the UK. Despite the financial opportunities available, many residents experience the high cost of living in the United Kingdom. So, in fact, The Guardian states that the UK has the worst quality of life in Europe due to such a high number of bills, so utility bills, rent, transportation are all extremely expensive compared to most other destinations, not just in Europe, but around the world. But this is, of course, offset with higher salaries, however. Another disadvantage is council tax. So this is a charge to pay for all working citizens that live in the UK. So the amount of council tax depends on what band your home that you're living in falls under. So, for instance, this will be cheaper if you live in an apartment or a flat. So it's a local taxation system. It's a tax on domestic property, and it was introduced in 1993, replacing what was known as community charge or poll tax. So each property is assigned one of 8 bands based on property value, and the tax is set at a fixed amount for each band. So some property is exempt from the tax, while some get a discount. However, in 2015, the average yearly council tax bill was £1,196, which is obviously, quite a substantial figure. If you are thinking about living somewhere else in Europe, this council tax will be included in your income tax, so it will be deducted directly from your salary. So yeah, generally council tax is difficult to avoid or evade, and therefore has one of the highest collection rates of any tax. So of course, some more disadvantages is the increasing governmental restrictions on freedom. This is referring a little bit to lack of privacy due to increasing surveillance and data recorders. And anywhere really that there is larger cities, of course, it falls subject to overpopulation. So there's a lot more traffic. Everything is generally busier and not as relaxed if we're going to compare directly to Cyprus, for instance, which it has a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere in most towns or cities generally. And of course, poor weather conditions. Because of the position of the UK on Earth, it is on the same latitude with some rather cold parts of Canada in North America. So the Gulf Stream brings warm air from the south, which is why it's not constantly freezing. However, it also brings a lot of rain, and ultimately it is a comparatively small island surrounded by sea. In the rest of the country, according to the UK Met Office, the average rainfall in the UK is 1,154 millilitres per year. So on average, it also rains for 156 days per year. However, some parts of England are much wetter than others, and the farther south you go, the more unlikely it is that you'll have to pack an umbrella. So weather can be unpredictable and erratic as well. It can be sunny for a few hours, snowy for another few hours, and then rainy at the end of the day. This means that residents have to be prepared for unpredictable weather, rain, and year-round quite cold temperatures. So this is not only limited to the winter months, it also affects pretty much summer and spring seasons as well. And this is a huge reason why UK citizens move to live abroad, which is a topic we will discuss in more depth in just a few slides. Okay, so moving on to Cyprus now, I will just briefly talk about this as we will go into depth looking at why Cyprus is a popular destination for expats. So, of course, the Mediterranean quality of life. Cyprus offers a comfortable standard of living, and based on the latest worldwide quality of life index, Cyprus marks really favorably and exhibits exceptional lifestyle and top quality of life. So the survey took into account a variety of factors, and of course, yeah, it has a lot of fresh food. The weather is always quite pleasant, And so this means that you can spend a lot more time outside, and this is obviously a huge advantage to living in Cyprus. Of course, the low crime rate, we will look at in depth as well, and the year-round climate. So we will look at this now. So it has warm, dry summers from about April or May time, which span all the way to October, even as late as November. It's beach weather some years, with mild winters and only occasional rain, lasting from roughly December to February season. So summer and winter in Cyprus are separated by short autumn and spring seasons. So the average daytime temperatures during summer range from 21 to 34 degrees, although in high summer temperatures can reach as much as 40 degrees. During the cooler months, temperatures can range between 7 and 15, although during the height of winter there are generally 6 hours of bright sunshine during the day and almost 340 days of sunshine per year. So criminality in Cyprus is among the lowest in the world compared to international standards as indicated by international crime statistics. So indicatively, the number of serious crime was 1,039 per 100,000 in population, which is far below the corresponding figure for the European Union, according to Interpol statistics. Cyprus is without a doubt the safest country within the EU based on analysis of data from the EU Statistical Office, Eurostat. So you cannot draw this conclusion simply by visiting the Eurostat website, as the statistics are simply given in their absolute form. So the total number of recorded crimes, the total number of violent crimes or robberies, etc. But from the site, you can find out that there were 2.3 million crimes recorded in Spain. This was in 2015, and 4.4 million in the UK for the same year, but only 8,000 crimes recorded in Cyprus during 2015. Of course, Spain has a much larger population than Cyprus, so if you want to compare say places to go on holiday, places to retire, the numbers do not really tell you so much. In order to get comparative analysis, you need to go to a separate part of the Eurostat website and pick up all the statistics on population by country. So Cyprus has been plagued by a history of severe conflict between the Greek and the Turkish. Both of these nations were sought to claim the island without any clear result. We will discuss this in depth in just a few slides. Yet, in spite of all of this, it does remain one of the safest EU countries to live. While instances of petty theft are reported, especially by tourists, on a frequent basis, the crime rate across the island is actually very low. So travelers and visitors are therefore generally advised to keep passports and valuables safe. And of course, it's a great place to raise children. It's possible for children to play outdoors without anyone having to worry about them. And the overall environment is generally safe and secure. So, however, unlike any other place, there are pros and cons of Cyprus life. Looking at the GDP per capita in Cyprus, the island is currently in the lower range among European countries. The capital, Nicosia, is the center of finance and business activity on the island and somewhat of a hotspot for expats living in Cyprus. So the island has suffered from the financial and economic crisis of previous years and reported a high number of unemployment rate. However, it's now steadily recovering. The country is currently finding its way back to steady economic growth, having been an important strategic outpost for and trade center for millennia. Cyprus made the best of its location, despite the ongoing territorial dispute with Turkey. So as well, salaries can be relatively low depending on your area of work. So it's closely related to the low cost of living or vice versa. However, the salaries in many jobs are quite low. So you will be able to get by fine, mainly because of the low cost of living, the taxation rate where personal income tax is not paid for the first 19,500,000 euros in the first year. On average, lower wages and lack of shopping options as well. So it is a market that is increasing with more and more opportunities. However, there is still a significant difference between the shopping options in Cyprus and other places, not only with the limited selection of products, but also many shops take a 3-hour lunch break and rarely open on Sundays. However, luckily there is always the option to purchase online. So tourism is also a major driver of the economy in Cyprus. So because tourism is heavily focused on the summer season, the popular tourist destination almost comes to a complete halt during the off-season. So the winter slowdown might be a positive for you. However, there is a significant difference in the opportunities between the summer and the winter seasons. So off-season tourism is picking up, and plans for casino and international quality new golf courses for off-season tourism is bound to pick this up in the next few years. And perhaps something safety-wise to mention that won't be in the travel guides is that Cyprus falls on an earthquake zone. So most travel guides don't really mention this, but the Turkish tectonic plate connects with the African one just south of the island of Cyprus, and occasionally some earthquake can be felt. Since 2005, the south coast has seen 6 only minor tremors of low magnitude, but it's not, a huge point to pick up on, really. So lack of public transport infrastructure. So of course there are 2 main airports in Cyprus that are reliable, busy hubs that can really take you anywhere in the world that you want to go. This isn't the same for the internal travel in the island. So there hasn't been a rail network in Cyprus since the 50s. Buses are available and are fairly inexpensive. Unfortunately, they are not always reliable and routes can be very limited. So many people opt for private taxis, although these can often not be metered and therefore be quite expensive. However, apps like Uber are being increasingly used. A car is pretty much a necessity in Cyprus for 2 reasons: because of the mediocre public transport, and as well because of the extremely hot summers, which often leave you too hot to walk during the hottest months. So an interesting point of discussion is the island divide. That would affect you if you lived really in Nicosia. However, also for those wanting to travel around the island, something you will encounter is the last divided capital in the European Union. So for more than 4 decades, a United Nations patrol buffer zone has bisected Nicosia, running right through the Cyprus capital and dividing the historic heart of the city. So it was a casualty of war, at first a result of intercommunal fighting that took the form of Turkish Cypriot, some like sort of ghettos in the 60s, and then as a no man's land between ceasefire lines by little more than what 2 opposing armies agreed were their last defended positions. So at 6 a.m. On 18th of August 1974, the dead zone officially became into being. On account of it, it doesn't really look like anything special today. Behind reinforced sandbags, barrels, and barbed wire, it remains for the most part a lifeless strip, with the exception of the odd UN patrol. While at intermittent points, the Greek and Turkish Cypriot conscripts in national service still face each other. This time warp also offers hope. So for the last 18 months, the island's leaders, President Nikos Anastasiadis and Mustafa Akinci, have been holding peace talks, actually in the abandoned airport complex inside the dead zone. So these talks are aimed at uniting the island's internationally recognized Greek-run south with its non-recognized Turkish-controlled north. So there were also discussions in Geneva in a historic summit between Greece, Turkey, and also the UK. This is Cyprus's post-colonial guarantor powers. So for the first time, it was last year in 2017, everyone agreed that the island possesses leaders who are determined to overcome the division. In another first, they have also agreed to pore over maps, focusing on the territorial trade-offs needed for a solution to a dispute that has defied international resolution for a very long time now. For decades, the dead zone was the most potent symbol of that division. However, now in the Home for Cooperation, a community centre opposite the Ledger Palace in the middle of the no man's land, has become a zone of life and interaction, a place of mingling, and for people who no longer want to insult the memory of the other. Okay, so we'll look at a comparison of the cost of living between Cyprus and the UK. So the cost of living in Cyprus is not as low as it used to be before Cyprus joined the EU in 2004 and replaced the Cypriot pound with the euro in 2008. However, as you can see, goods and services and commodities are still noticeably less expensive than in the UK. So what about the day-to-day cost of living in Cyprus? Aside from the fact that groceries, especially meat, fruit and vegetables, tend to be cheaper in Cyprus than the UK, the taxation aspect must also be considered in the overall cost of living. So restaurants. Generally speaking, restaurants are, of course, cheaper in Cyprus than they are in the UK. However, prices have risen somewhat in the wake of the euro's introduction. As for the locally available selection of restaurant food, unlike some other Mediterranean destinations, Cyprus boasts a range of different international cuisine, but obviously the best and most authentic is the Cyprus food and Mediterranean food. So yeah, you look at the market foods now. Beer and cigarettes also are cheaper, while cappuccinos are a little bit more expensive. This is just the standard, really like market food here. And petrol is cheaper in Cyprus, of course, than the UK, with seasonal prices fluctuating between about 110, €1.10 and €1.30 per litre. There's little more to these low fuel costs than first meets the eye, Public transport, utilities, and taxis can be less than half of the cost in the UK, as you can see there. Internet is really the only monthly bill where you generally pay more than the UK, and the internet speed and connection are really quite low quality compared to UK standards. As well for preschool and primary school, there are, however, um, also very high standard public schools that are free of charge in both Cyprus and the UK. The public schools in Cyprus are Greek speaking, however, if that's something for you to take into consideration. So, according to Numbeo, the cost of living in Cyprus is about 24% lower than the UK, excluding rental prices. Rent in Cyprus is 55% lower than the UK, and property prices can be up to 65% cheaper if purchasing. So, generally speaking, the cost between the two um, just really depends on personal preference, how you choose to live, your um, what you give importance to. Um, some expats believe that Cyprus is becoming more expensive, while others think that almost everything is reasonably priced. The prices of most products and services are anything between 20 to 50% lower than the UK and are definitely significantly lower than many other European countries. According to the data overall, it's a little bit lower than the European average for to live in Cyprus. However, of course, expats from, for instance, Africa, Asia, even Russia, are likely to find the island a little bit more expensive. Okay, so look at the standard of living now. The standard of living refers to the level of wealth, comfort, material goods, and necessities that are available to certain socio-economic class in certain geographic area. So the standard of living includes factors such as income, quality, availability of employment, class disparity, poverty rate, affordability of housing, hours of work required to purchase necessities, gross domestic product or GDP, inflation rate, amount of leisure time every year, affordable or free access to quality healthcare, availability of education, life expectancy, cost of goods and services, economic growth, economic and political stability, political and religious freedoms, environmental quality, climate, and safety. And the standard of living is closely related to the quality of life as well. So the quality of life index specifically is what we're going to look at. This is the measurement that it's just a fairly standard measurement, really. So for the quality of life index, um, this is obviously the higher the score is better, and it's an estimation of overall quality of life by using an empirical formula, which takes into account the following: purchasing power index. So obviously higher is better here. The pollution index, which lower is better. The house price to income ratio, here lower is better. The cost of living index, lower is better. The safety index, which of course it's the higher the score, the better it is. The healthcare index, the higher the score, the better it is. And the traffic commute time, of course, lower is better here. So let's see how the UK and Cyprus fare in comparison to each other. So as you can see, both have an overall high ranking in the Quality of Life Index with no red points for any key aspects. So the only moderate score where the UK is, you could say, is underperforming is safety, the cost of living, and the property price to income ratio, and traffic commute time as well. These are all points previously discussed as the disadvantages for the UK, whereas Cyprus only scores moderate for 3 points, namely the purchasing power, the healthcare index, and interestingly, pollution too. This could be to do with the lack of public transport, the way that in summer it's really, you can't really cycle, you can't really walk anywhere, you really have to drive. So from the fairly equal test results from the quality of life, we will now look at why such a high percentage of um, people move to Cyprus and find it an appealing place to settle, whether it be to retire, study, or start a family. So with all the rainfall per year in Cyprus, in the UK, sorry, Cyprus Mediterranean climate with mild winters is a huge attraction. The country's proximity to the equator influences the temperature and its overall climate. Of course, the low crime rate in Cyprus is really appealing, and the healthcare standard as well. So ranked by the World Health Organization as one of the healthiest countries in the Mediterranean, Cyprus has an excellent healthcare system provided through both the private and the public sector. The public health service is funded through the social security payments of those who work on the island, whether Cypriot or foreign residents. The system provides free or low-cost healthcare for those who contribute to social security, plus their families and retirees, as well as emergency treatment for everyone. However, the full public health service isn't available to foreign visitors who require private health insurance unless they wish to pay higher medical bills. So EU citizens who are visiting Cyprus can receive free outpatient or inpatient treatment with an European health card or an EHIC card, which is issued by the health authority in their home country. However, this covers only essential treatment and not routine treatment. There are a number of private clinics as well throughout the island that specialise in all fields of healthcare, and their fees are low compared to most European countries. So the relaxed pace and excellent quality of life. So for those who want to strike a balance between work and their personal lives, Cyprus is the perfect place to be. One of the first Greek phrases that you will learn after moving to the island is siga siga, which literally translated means slowly, slowly. This is a phrase really often used by the locals, and people in Cyprus firmly believe that all experiences should be enjoyed and the finer things in life should never be rushed. So most expats enjoy a higher standard of life as residents of the island, since they have the better climate, better healthcare, and a higher purchasing power than the global average. An interesting point as well is the number of large expat communities in the bilingual island as well. So the ease of communication here is a huge point. So in Cyprus, English is really widely spoken and extensively used in business as well as everyday life. So, for example, various road signs, restaurant menus are also available in English, and a number of media such as newspaper, local radio, and television programs are also in English. So in the recent past, there's been a significant increase in the number of EU nationals, so Russian and Asian communities as well, who have relocated. And the beaches as well. The beaches in Cyprus almost deserve a section of their own. They are consistently voted among the best beaches in Europe, and with the long summers and the high heats, beaches are the perfect way to spend summers there. And yeah, we will talk about the expat communities as well. So there's a huge population of foreigners based in Cyprus, primarily because of the reasons listed above. Another point is that it's actually quite easy for them to settle because of the large number of the communities across the region. So we're focusing on UK expats moving. So Paphos is known as Little England, typically, and Limassol is interestingly known as Little Russia, due to the large number of UK and Russian communities living there, respectively. So taxation is one of the many advantages of living in Cyprus. There's a really high income tax threshold and special rates for foreign pensions, and interest can be tax-free for up to 17 years. So as a resident of Cyprus, you are taxable on your worldwide income. So certain incomes, such as bank interest and dividends, are exempt from income tax. However, taxable in the form of defence contributions. So rental income is subject to both income tax and defence contribution. As already discussed, the first €19,500 of income tax is free, and after that, rates start at 20% and rise progressively to 35% for income over €60,000. And one of the biggest advantages for retirees is that if you have UK pension income under the Cyprus UK double tax treaty, the income is taxable is solely in Cyprus. So this applies to all pension income, whether paid by the UK government, an occupational pension, or a private pension fund. This is unusual because in most other countries, government service pensions remain taxable, however, may also be taken into account for income tax calculations in the country of residence. So foreign pension income receives special treatment, and actually the individual chooses how it is taxed. So it can be taxed at a flat rate of 5% on excess of over €3,420, or the normal scale rate of income tax, as discussed previously. And you can choose the method that works best for you. The defence contribution qualifies for 17 years exemption. So this defence levy applies to worldwide investment income of individuals who are resident and domiciled in Cyprus at the following rates. So 30% or 3% if your income is less than 12,000, dividends or shares at a rate of 17%, and rental income at a rate of 3%. And since 2015, Cyprus non-domiciles don't have to pay any defence contribution. Generally, you will be considered Cyprus domiciled if you were born in the country or you have been resident for 17 out of the last 20 years. So capital gains tax as well. There is no capital gains tax in Cyprus on the sale of shares. It's only payable on gains arising from the sale of real estate located in Cyprus, regardless of whether you are a resident or not. So property in the UK or anywhere else is also exempt. So where it is due, it is charged at a flat rate of 20%. However, this is not included on any a local inheritance either. So a new field of fission has opened up for the property industry and other major investments in response to oil and gas that has been found in Cyprus, with big projects such as ports, marine, regarding tourism and property industries, which are already planned and under construction. So all these upcoming projects offer huge daily development to the island, making Cyprus one of the most attractive places for investment in Europe. So traditionally, Cyprus has been a sought-after location for overseas buyers looking for a holiday home or secondary investment property. The Cyprus property market has regained stability after a downturn caused by the global recession. Cyprus property investment can provide outstanding value, and in comparison to other EU countries, can offer foreign investment a safe return on investment, or just a place to live as well. The market on the island is buoyed by the government's increased investment in infrastructure and the 5 new approved marinas and golf courses that are also currently being developed. So any key rule of investment strategy is that it should be specifically designed around your circumstances, objectives, and risk tolerance. So your circumstances change drastically when you move to a country and retirement. So your strategy needs to be professionally reviewed to establish how it should be adjusted to suit your new life and goals. The Cyprus property developers have a large inventory of sites and builds available in various locations. So there are many apartments, villas, and houses all over the island, and both resale and rebuild properties are available. It can provide equally good value for investment. If the intention is to use the property for holiday rental income, then it's important that it be located close to the tourist centres. Work with a reputable estate agent or service provider that has knowledge of the tourist industry and the towns that are most attractive for the owners of rental property. So when investing in property for the purpose to rent or lease, your next step will be to secure a trustworthy and dependable property management company that will provide all the required services, such as completion of necessary documentation and repair of any furnishings, which we will look at in just a few slides. So the real draw for a number of international luxury homeowners is the array of incentives they get from the government. So real estate prices haven't gone up much since their steep decline during the 2008 financial crisis, and there is a surplus of homes in the market. However, there are signs of stabilization, mainly due to government incentives. So in 2015, the authorities came up with a temporary program reducing the cost of title deed transfers by half. And a spokesperson for the Ministry of Finance recently stated that this incentive may soon become permanent. He also spoke about another law to be introduced, which will cut property tax by almost 75% and maybe even abolish it completely by 2019. So according to legislation, anyone who spends over 183 days in Cyprus is entitled to become a tax resident. So this means that you have to pay tax on any income you earn locally and overseas. However, UK nationals with this residency don't have to pay capital gains tax on the sale of any UK assets. So if you are not a UK citizen, you'll need to purchase a permanent residency for a minimum of $500,000 to receive Cyprus citizenship. This investment is also included in the required investment of over $2 million. As the property market increases in value, of course, you can also reap the increase of the property value as well. So foreigners can easily purchase a house or buy land and build a home. The price of real estate is quite reasonable compared to the UK and other European countries. So the process of purchasing property in Cyprus can take a while. It could take more than 3 months to fully close the deal, and this is mainly because of the application you have to make to the Council of Ministers. So the process is quite straightforward, and we will actually look at this now in more depth. So if you're wanting to buy a property in Cyprus or a second property, you can start by gathering a list of properties according to your individual requirements regarding price range, ideal location, property type, for instance. And once you've narrowed down your selection, our expert property agents can arrange personal viewings and be on hand throughout the entire process to assist with any vital information. And after you have found the house that you would like to buy, now, of course, you have to talk about the documentation to secure the property. So this includes a preliminary agreement, which should be signed and a deposit should be paid. The preliminary agreement can also be referred to as a reservation agreement. So upon signing the required documentation, the property can then officially be taken off the market for conducting the necessary legal checks and clarification on the terms of the deal. So you have to open a bank account as well. At the same time the property is reserved, the buyer should look to open an account for the Cyprus Bank. That's a fairly straightforward and simple stage. And then the sales agreement as well. So once all the above steps have been successfully completed, the buyer and seller enter into a contract of sale, which requires signing a legally binding contract. After the written contract has been agreed and signed, then this is when the application to the Cyprus Council of Ministers has to be made in order to obtain a permit used for purchasing the property. And this is a document required for non-Cypriots. It's a fairly easy form. It doesn't take so much time to complete, but you may see that the processing time, this is what adds maybe a few months to the processing time of any application for house purchase in Cyprus. So the next stage is the ownership rights secured with the land registry. So the next step involves perhaps legal advisor submitting the contract to the Cyprus District Lands Office to formally register the purchase with the jurisdiction. The Lands Office will stamp the contract, record it in the official land registry, and after this stage has been completed, this will effectively secure all ownership rights over the property until a separate certificate of ownership is issued. So the payment for the property can be sent directly to the seller's account. However, for increased security, I'd recommend using what's called an escrow account, which offers a more protected method of payment, especially for cases where the property is under renovation or still being built. And that way you can make payments in installments as the construction develops. And finally, the transferal of ownership certificate, and this is also known as a title deed. So the transferal of the title deed with the buyer can be completed straight away. However, it's not usually the case. If the property is still under construction or has recently been built, typically the developer or the seller won't have a separate ownership for the property. And it may be some time to wait before you receive it. So until the time of issuance, your legal ownership rights over the property are held by the sales contract with the District Lands Office. So the application to the Lands Office to obtain the title deed can also be taken care of by a legal advisor or service provider as well. So there are various issues, tax issues that UK citizens face, or anyone faces when moving to Cyprus, especially for retirement purposes. Some Cyprus taxes sound the same as taxes in the UK, however, are calculated differently, and in some cases, what is tax-free in the UK may not be tax-free in Cyprus. So the first thing to note is that there is a very low rate of income tax on pensions when they are transferred. So in addition, rules about transferring pensions are simple and easy to grasp. So it's really worth reviewing your pension fund before moving to both Cyprus or to the UK. There are many options for pensions under UK pension freedom rules. I need to understand how they all work and consider which would be best for you. The Cyprus taxation regime can provide opportunities for residents, and this is a specialist area where it's better really to receive professional advice about it. As well, retirement healthcare. Obviously, this is something that's really important if you're looking to move in older age. So in common with much of the rest of Western Europe, public and private sector healthcare services for retirees coexist relatively efficiently, allowing patients to choose consultations and surgical procedures as they prefer. So if you're considering private healthcare, AXA, which is like a fairly standard insurance company, an international quote is €6,100 per person per year for a comprehensive cover policy for someone that is 75 years older or more, with no excess of inclusive taxes based on this is sorry for two people, so a couple age 75 or over. So state healthcare is also, as we've discussed, inexpensive and sometimes free for EU citizens. If you're from Russia, for instance, this is probably something that you have to look at separately. So since 2013, nominal charges have been introduced for the treatment of most Cyprus citizens and permanent expat residents. For those who do not hold a medical card, some charges will be higher. So state healthcare is available to anyone paying into the Cyprus social security system. It may also be available to those in receipt of a UK state pension, long-term contribution-based incapacity benefit, or bereavement allowance. So in order to qualify for any of these, it will be necessary to apply for an S1 form, also known as a certificate of entitlement from the UK Pension Service. Okay, so that concludes today's webinar. Thank you so much for everyone that attended and submitted questions to the chat box. I will reply via email now after the webinar finishes. So thank you, everyone. Again, if you'd like any more information on anything mentioned in the presentation today, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'd finally like to draw your attention to the expansion of Eltoma's services portfolio into the property market. So you have a number of unique properties on the market for Cyprus investment opportunities. Should you wish to find out about any more of the properties on screen, you can do so by entering your email address directly into the chat box, and one of our property agents will revert to you shortly. Alternatively, you can also visit eltoma-property.com. Okay, so thank you again and wishing you a nice rest of your day.